How measuring changed what we believe. For most of human history, belief came first and measurement followed, shaped loosely by intuition, tradition, and shared stories about how the world worked. People trusted what felt true, what seemed consistent, what aligned with experience, repeated often enough to become convincing. Numbers existed, but they served belief, not the other way around. Then measurement began to tighten. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but steadily, as tools improved and questions demanded precision rather than reassurance. Distances were no longer estimated. Time was no longer felt. Weight was no longer guessed. Reality began submitting to numbers. At first, this felt empowering. Measurement promised fairness, objectivity, and clarity. Disagreements could be settled. Arguments could be tested. Truth seemed reachable through instruments instead of opinion. But something unexpected happened. Beliefs began to bend. Not because people wanted them to, but because measurement refused to agree. Results contradicted intuition. Data challenged stories. Numbers exposed patterns nobody expected to see. What people believed no longer mattered if the measurement disagreed. The world stopped caring about common sense. Accuracy replaced authority. Repeatability replaced reputation. Belief became provisional. This shift quietly rewired human thinking. Truth stopped being something you declared. It became something you demonstrated. Confidence no longer came from conviction, but from consistency across repeated measurement. Yet measurement was not neutral. Choosing what to measure shaped what mattered. Choosing how to measure shaped what was seen. Belief did not disappear. It moved upstream. The modern world was built on this inversion. We believe what survives measurement. We trust what can be quantified. We doubt what resists numbers. And in that trade, something essential was gained, and something deeply human was put at risk. Because once measurement defines belief, meaning must compete with precision. And the story of how that tension unfolds is still shaping everything we call truth today. As measurement spread, belief did not vanish. It adapted, slowly reshaping itself around numbers that claim to describe reality more faithfully than experience ever could. People began trusting instruments over intuition, tables over testimony, averages over stories, because numbers appeared calm, impartial, and immune to bias. What could be measured felt solid, and what could not began to feel suspicious, incomplete, or even untrue. This change transformed authority. Elders, experts, and traditions lost ground to readings, charts, and recorded results that could be checked by anyone with the same tools. Knowledge became reproducible. Truth became portable. Belief became conditional on data, agreeing again tomorrow. But measurement carried hidden assumptions. Every instrument framed reality in a specific way. Every scale ignored something. Precision came with blind spots. What was not measured quietly stopped mattering. As systems optimized around metrics, behavior shifted. People worked to improve scores rather than substance. Institutions chased indicators rather than outcomes. Numbers became targets instead of tools. Meaning thinned as performance thickened. This distortion was subtle. Measurements were accurate. Calculations were correct. Yet results felt wrong. The system behaved exactly as designed, revealing a gap between what was counted and what was valued. Belief fractured under this pressure. Some trusted numbers completely. Others rejected them entirely. Debate polarized around data rather than understanding. Measurement, meant to unify, became divisive. This exposed a deeper conflict. Measurement describes reality. It does not define importance. When numbers replace judgment, values are S. This is where the conflict between measurement and belief fully reveals itself. Not as a technical disagreement about numbers, but as a deep psychological struggle over what humans trust when experience and data no longer point in the same direction. When measurements contradict lived reality, people do not calmly update beliefs. They resist, reinterpret, or reject the numbers, because belief is rarely just information. It is identity, memory, and meaning woven together. As metrics became dominant, systems began rewarding what could be counted rather than what was understood. Efficiency replaced wisdom. Optimization replaced judgment. Success became a numerical target instead of a human outcome. What mattered most was no longer what felt right, but what scored well. This created a quiet distortion. Organizations learned to look healthy on paper while becoming fragile in reality. Individuals learned to perform for metrics while disconnecting from purpose. Entire cultures learned to trust dashboards more than intuition, even when the dashboards produced outcomes that felt hollow or harmful. The deeper problem was not measurement itself, but overreach. Numbers were never meant to carry meaning alone. They described slices of reality, not the whole. But when belief outsourced truth entirely to measurement, interpretation disappeared, context evaporated, nuance was flattened into averages. This flattening produced a strange inversion. Complex human experiences were reduced to indicators. Indicators were mistaken for reality. And when reality resisted, it was blamed for being inefficient, irrational, or broken. People began feeling alienated from systems supposedly designed to help them. Healthcare optimized throughput instead of care. Education optimized scores instead of understanding. Work optimized output instead of fulfillment. Measurement succeeded. Meaning suffered. Emotionally, this bred distrust. Some people clung harder to numbers, believing more precision would fix the problem. Others rejected measurement altogether, retreating into intuition and belief without evidence. The gap widened. Dialogue collapsed. The tragedy is that both SID. The climax was not a rejection of measurement, nor a return to intuition, but a realization that neither could survive alone without distorting reality in dangerous and often invisible ways. When people finally began to see measurement as a tool rather than an authority, belief regained space to interpret, contextualize, and question what numbers claim to show. This shift did not make decisions easier. It made them more honest. Numbers stopped pretending to explain everything. Judgment returned where meaning mattered. Measurement informed belief instead of replacing it. Systems that adapted learned a crucial lesson. Metrics guide attention, but values guide choice. Data reveals patterns, but humans decide importance. Precision supports understanding only when paired with wisdom. Where this balance emerged, trust slowly returned. Healthcare measured outcomes, but listened to patients. Education tracked performance, but protected curiosity. Work used metrics, but respected human limits. Measurement served life instead of compressing it. The deeper resolution was cultural. Belief was no longer embarrassed by uncertainty. Admitting limits became strength. Context mattered again. Interpretation regained legitimacy. Measurement did not lose power. It gained purpose, freed from the burden of defining truth. It became clearer, sharper, and more useful. Numbers stopped shouting and started supporting. The modern world still depends on measurement. That will not change. But survival depends on remembering what measurement cannot see. Meaning, dignity, purpose, experience. Once this distinction is understood, belief no longer fears numbers. And numbers no longer dominate belief. They coexist, and in that coexistence, truth becomes something richer than precision alone. It becomes something human. Sometimes the smallest shift in perspective becomes the beginning of a new future. How